You know, a lot of times I think about how important it is to have a mentor in tree work. But mentors are hard to find, to find somebody who's been doing it for a long time that'll take the time and train you and really show you the ropes and the tricks and the techniques. You almost have to be working alongside of them. So I'm hoping that this YouTube channel on trees and tree care will be the next best thing. So I take people on a lot of the jobs that I do, and I talk about different things that happen during the day, and I talk about different trees. So let's go check out a few trees. Well, we got a big one today. First thing I'm going to do is work around the base here and check this out. Looks like there's a weakness down here.
Learning how to read a tree is very difficult. But in these videos, I would like you to pay attention to what I'm showing you, and maybe you too can see trees with a different perspective. First thing I'm doing here is I'm going to do a real thorough inspection, but I got to clean it up real good. Check out my new blower. Many of the cities I work in California have blower bans for gasoline engines. So an electric blower is really important. Now let's take a good close look at the base of the tree. Why do I always emphasize the base of the tree? Well, here's where you're going to find possibly some serious root problems. And look at all the little areas that the tree may have been impacted in the past. How bad is that? Well, unless you get down there and really dig around, you don't know. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten into a situation very similar to this and started pulling at it and realized that it was much more decayed than you could see from just a visual observation from the outside. A little bit of excavation, a little bit of work with some tools. Be careful not to damage the bark when you're working on it. Don't go at it with a vengeance. There we have something interesting. That's a bacterial infection called a slime flux, and that's where the sap is actually fermenting and it's oozing out of the bark. Sometimes you can smell the alcohol smell. And look at these little lines right here. That's kind of interesting. Look closely at the tree. What am I seeing here? Those are old spur marks from some past climber that used climbing gaffs to get up this tree. That's just wrong. You use gaffs on a removal, but you don't take care of a tree. It's a big tree, and look where it's leaning, right over the house. There was a bedroom there, and now take a look at that. Do you see that? I hate to use the word crack, but there is a strain on that side of the tree, and during the wind, it's kind of flexing, and you can often read those weaknesses in the bark. And when you get up on top and look, you may find areas that are more compromised. Here, I've done a little bit more digging down at the base. A piece of really stiff wire is a great tool. Sometimes I'm digging around in there and all of a sudden the wire just plunges deep inside the tree. There's those lines in. What do you think that is? I think that is from barbed wire from a long time ago. That's my guess anyway, and I'm going to stick with it. All right. Big tree. We're going to be doing some work up here, and I got out my Apta, the air-powered throw launcher. It's a really, really fun tool. There's a lot of different tools and techniques for getting a throw bag. We used to call them throw balls, but now they're bags. They're like heavy bags up into the tree so that you can get your ropes up there. There's a big slingshot, and this air-powered tool I find is a little bit more accurate for tight spots. I guess it all depends upon your level of skill. So we worked up on this tree. We had a lot of heavy roping to do. This is Jorge up there with his pole saw. Let's speed it up a little bit here because he's got to cut this faster. The magic of editing, we can speed things up and you don't have to watch it in real time. Quite often I like to shoot a little video showing all the brush before we chip it. And this area, I filled this area up 3 times with this much brush, but the tree really didn't look that bad. Okay, so on this particular job, we had 9 oak trees to work on. We had that great big one, then we had a whole grouping around the corner here, and there was some unusual things going on. I want you to look at this limb. Look at how it's wrapped up inside these other 2 limbs. Now, there's got to be a weakness in there. As each of these grows, everything expands and it kind of pushes itself apart. There's another oddball tree right on the fence line, and they had to kind of build the fence around it. Part of our job over here, a lot of these limbs were hanging so low over this little roadway that the trucks were hitting them, and the damage to all the limbs was pretty severe. So we took off 3 pretty significant low limbs. And this is kind of interesting. Look at the bark on this oak tree. And there is some cracking in the bark, which may be a problem, or it may just be the expansion of the smooth bark taking on the older bark characteristics. If you look at the bark on an old oak tree, you'll see it's very convoluted. I had to do a bid in the afternoon on a fairly significant redwood tree. These are just stills that I took. And I want you to look very closely. That's the size of the trunk. It's about 36 inches in diameter. The tree was about 70 feet tall. But I want you to look really close at the wires. There's high voltage wires everywhere. And finally, to wrap this video up, we had a Siberian elm. This is a big, ugly tree that was loaded with problems. One of the biggest problems is the squirrels were chewing on the branches everywhere. So the tree was full of these damaged limbs, and some of them were completely dead, some of them were almost dead. So we had a lot of weight reduction that we had to do on this tree because they started losing big limbs. So I used the bucket for a lot of it. We got up in the tree, and everywhere I looked, it was a basket case tree to begin with. Look at the old wounds and the weaknesses. This was not a fun job at all. I just did it in one day, and so many big dead limbs up there. And there was a lot of weaknesses too. Squirrels, that's one squirrel's nest being started. I got rid of it because there was nobody home. But look at the damage. Everywhere I looked, they chewed the bark all the way around. And interestingly, this branch was completely surrounded by the chewing, but it was still green, so it hadn't quite dried out yet. But it will, it'll dry out. There's a close-up of the squirrel damage. That's on another limb. And that one is still got the leaves on it, but they're dead. Now, if you cut a branch and just leave it there, the leaves stay on there and dry off for a long time. There's some more squirrel damage, close-up. I showed the client that. There was a lot of holes up in the tree, too. This is a close-up inspection of an old hole up here from a wound from a long time ago. I wonder how deep that is. Well, I don't have my tool with me, but you know what? I can always find a stick. There we go. It goes in there quite a ways. Look at that. That tells you something. How weak is that part of the tree? How much new tissue is being added to it to strengthen that part? Where does that limb lead to? There's another weakness. Look at this. Look at the quality of this. We'll call that soil. That's what makes topsoil, rotting debris. This is like a little pocket compost bin in here. Ooh, sometime I think I had to save some of this stuff. Wouldn't it be kind of fun to fill up a tomato pot and grow a tomato plant in just the rotting stuff that you find in tree cavities? I've never done that before, but I'll bet it would work. So I had to cut this tree back moderately hard, and the clients had their concerns. That's what I finished it with. It's a little bit severe, but I didn't feel like I really had any options. So I cut it back, but I did leave enough green. And this is a type of tree that does immediately sucker out and sprout out. So in no time, it's going to be bushy again. And it's a few stills of what it looks like when it was done. I think I'm going to show you an after or before shot here, and then after. That's what it was like before. And let's go back to a finished shot after. Yeah, it's a little extreme, but I had to do it. And while I was there, this limb, I forgot to take it out. It fell down right in front of me when I was talking to the client. It was a dead piece that I missed. Ouch.